Good morning. Welcome back to the Round Table, and it is always an exciting time when we welcome the folks from the Fenimore Art Museum in Cooperstown, New York, onto the program because they are so cool, and all of the things that are going on at the Fenimore, just so cool. So they are presenting 12 new exhibitions in calendar year 2023 alongside its world-renowned collections of fine art, folk art, and Native American art. Their summer season is highlighted. We'll talk about a couple of these, but the two big highlights, MC Escher, Infinite Variations, which runs through September 4th, a major exhibition spanning the Dutch artist's entire career with more than 160 works on display from a private collection. And also Day and Night, drawing hands, waterfall, eye, and relativity. And that is a that's part of the Escher exhibit, right? Yes. I missed my own paragraphing. Another highlight is Day to Night, photographs by Stephen Wilkes through September 10th. And we get a preview with Director of Exhibitions Chris Rossi and Manager of Arts Education Kevin Gray. Thank you very much for being with us. A great pleasure. I'm going to bring this down for you, Chris. There you go.
Thanks, and thanks for having us again.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us. Okay, I don't know a tremendous amount about the museum world other than I like going to them, but 12 seems like a lot of exhibitions to me.
It feels like a lot of exhibitions to us too.
How did that happen?
When you have so many wonderful exhibits march before you, it's hard to say no. So we went for it, and especially Escher, we've been planning for years. COVID put that off a little bit, and luckily Pan Art Connections, which is lending, the group lending to us, was very flexible, and we were able to get it on the schedule for 23, so couldn't say no to that. And then Stephen Wilkes' photography is unbelievable. So it's a stellar year for us.
Both of those are up right now and ready to be viewed.
Yes.
What's the early reaction?
Big success. I think people are surprised and really amazed by the Stephen Wilkes photography. And Escher is an old favorite for many people and becoming a new for many of our visitors who are not familiar with the work. So 2 thumbs up on both.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about, and whoever, I don't know which one of you want to do this, but tell us a little bit about Escher and his career and work and how ultimately it came to be as popular as it is.
So Escher, MC Escher, a Dutch artist who we say artist, but Escher himself would have said mathematician. He considered himself much more of analytical mathematician than artist, although when you see the actual prints in the exhibition, he is certainly one of the finest of artists, especially printmakers. But he began his career wanting to get into architecture, but when he went to school, he was quickly kind of convinced to go into the graphic arts and work in printmaking, starting with woodblock. And it was his trip to Italy which inspired him. So there's many early prints of the Italian countryside done in these incredible woodblock prints and lithographs with really interesting use of perspective and detail and shading. And by the 1930s, it was a trip to Spain and the Alhambra, which has these amazing tessellated tiles throughout the entire structure that led him into this new direction where these patterns become involved, these birds morphing into fish, these incredible kind of patterns going across these images. And then finally, towards the 1950s and 1960s, his love of mathematics completely took over, and he starts making his impossible spaces, his staircases that go in every single direction at the same time, and his waterfalls that return back upwards, even though the water is still technically flowing downhill. All of these spaces that can be drawn on a 2D plane, but could never exist in the 3D world. So they're really, really exciting pieces.
It seems to me, I mean, just in your description, but in seeing it, of a radical departure from what he was to what he became as an artist.
Yeah, it's really amazing because, as Kevin said, you start out with these lovely, detailed landscapes of the Italian countryside, and then he progresses into the realm of mathematics and becomes very much taken with mathematics, mathematical theory, the idea of how to depict infinity, if you will. And he has success not only as an artist, but also in the pop art world. He becomes very much the darling. And back in the 60s and 70s, you had rock and roll artists who wanted to use his work on covers of their albums. Mick Jagger asked about using a piece, and Escher's response was, "Certainly not, and who are you?" And from what we could tell, Jagger did it anyway. Like, a lot of people pirated Escher's images and used them as they wanted.
So that says that they got him perhaps better than he got them.
In terms of, I think Escher was walking, as he said, very much on his own. And in terms of, he was in his mathematical head, he was exploring things he found fascinating. And the pop world looked at that and thought, op art, psychedelic, mind-bending stuff, and they got it on that level. Pop culture did.
But if he were at the meeting, as far as the marketing of it would say, we're not up for that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, and that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did he pass away?
It's 1970s.
1973, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So a good career. I mean, a good long career.
Very long career. And he was making prints nearly up to the year that he died. His final print is in the exhibition, which was completed in 1969, and it might be actually one of his most elaborate woodblock prints that he ever made. So even up till his death, his faculties were very much in good shape, and he was able to make really incredible prints. Mm-hmm.
You touched on this, Chris, but tell us a little bit about how the show came together and this particular group of work came together.
Yeah, we work with different traveling exhibition firms to bring new work into the museum. And they had presented us with this exhibition, and I had the opportunity to visit it on display at the Chrysler Museum of Art in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was just amazed by not only the work itself, because it's mind-bending and engaging, and I looked at it and recognized things that I had seen and enjoyed since I was in high school. Mm-hmm. But as Kevin has touched upon, the technical prowess, Escher's technical ability is beyond belief. So it's also this tour de force of printmaking. It's really quite extraordinary. And then I got to see the audience engagement with the work at the Norfolk, and people were clearly captivated, all the way from like little kids to grown-ups,
right,
loving the work.
Because it is welcoming, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And it's magical.
Yeah, I came across it as a kid because as a kid I loved optical illusions and magic, and his imagery fit right in with that. And so as somebody who is in charge of kind of helping our docents to interact with the public, I always like to stress to our audience that you do not need a deep knowledge of mathematics to appreciate the work. I certainly don't. So if you know what hyperbolic geometry is, for example, wonderful. You'll love it. If you don't, you don't
like Mick Jagger.
Exactly. But you don't need to know what that is to really appreciate the work, because he did strive to make his work kind of understandable by, every person who looked at it, by taking these intense mathematical concepts and making something beautiful out of it.
Like 25, 30 years ago, but there was they put out an entire collection of Escher neckties.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had a whole collection of those. And what I found fascinating is people would just like stare at them for such a long period of time and sort of turn them around and that's what's fascinating, is that you get to sort of see that and there's that initial impression, and then you realize there's a lot more going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen a lot more closer inspection and slight head tilting of visitors in this exhibit, trying to figure out the angles more so than I've probably seen in any exhibit so far. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
MC Escher Infinite Variations is a beautiful exhibit now on display through September 4th. 160, at least 160 more, I think, on display, including Day and Night, Drawing Hands, Waterfall, Eye, and Relativity. Okay, now let's go to Stephen Wilkes. Day to Night photographs by Stephen Wilkes on display through September 10th. What put Stephen Wilkes on your radar?
He was brought to our attention by someone who had one of his photographs. And the fun part about Wilkes is there's actually a relation to the Escher exhibit. And you kind of touched on that because there's a piece in the show, in the Escher show, that is day to night, essentially. And it's a progression showing things in the Escher imagery going from day to night. And that's exactly what Stephen Wilkes does in his photography. And it's extraordinary because in one photograph, you see, I think, Kevin, it's 36 hours?
Sometimes up to 36 hours, he said. Yeah.
Portrayed in one photo. And these are large color prints, some of them over 5 feet long. And they are entrancing and seem impossible. So there's that same sort of magic that goes on in these very engaging photographs.
How did he develop that particular style, that became his thing?
So I don't know how he first came about doing it. I know that he's done projects he's done a major project photographing and documenting Ellis Island, for example. But the actual concept is really, really incredible because, like Chris said, he'll set up a camera in one location, and this is everything from Times Square to Greenland that he's done this at. And over the span of these 24 to 36 hours, he'll take thousands and thousands of photographs. And then over the next month, he will spend kind of editing these pictures so that he's kind of selecting fragments from certain photographs at certain times of day and then kind of creating this seamless merging of daytime to nighttime across the picture. So there's a photograph of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and on one half of the picture you see the floats coming around. You see the classic Santa's sleigh float that ends the parade, and then suddenly it kind of transitions into a nighttime scene of the same location, and it's really, really incredible what he's able to do.
And that particular piece is fascinating because you see crowds and crowds and crowds on the left-hand side, and then by the end, well, it's Thanksgiving night and everybody's with their family, and the streets are just deserted.
Exactly.
And it's beautiful. It really is fascinating to see. A lot of nature too.
Oh yes, a lot of landscapes. Yosemite National Park is represented.
His work has been on the cover of National Geographic, and he's very much devoted to the natural world and raising awareness of concerns over loss of species and environmental harm. So the photos are also a testament to that.
Now, if he were here, I would ask the question of how do you know where to put the camera?
Oh, man. That's a really good question, and I wish I could tell you. But Kevin, do you have any insight?
We asked him that when he came to talk, and his basic answer was just a lot of kind of studying ahead of time. And he said that even when he did make his final decision, he's not sure that it's the right decision until he starts taking pictures. And there are sometimes these happy accidents which happen, which one time he was photographing a space in Serengeti National Park. And it was just this one moment in time when this herd of elephants walked by, and Stephen was kind of away from the camera a little bit doing something else. And his assistant basically had to yell at him, "Stephen, come over, take a picture." And he managed to snap that shot right before the elephants walked out of just the right part of the frame. Yeah. But he's never sure until he's actually there. But given the photographs in the exhibit, I think he's pretty much on the mark most of the time.
I think he's got it down. Yeah.
Is the Wrigley Field one in the exhibit?
No, not that one.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because, and I see this in several of his photographs, is that it's just a completely different view. I mean, it's, when you think of Wrigley, you think of the sort of the iconic view of the old sign and looking back and the ivy-covered walls, and this one just isn't that, and sort of takes it from the side, and it's really beautiful because not only does it allow for that day-to-night comparison, but also gives you a completely different perspective of the park and its place within the city of Chicago.
There's another example in the exhibit of one of Yosemite National Park where it's that typical view of looking down into the valley. You see Half Dome, but he made sure to include the parking area or the viewing area where the visitors are. And so you're seeing this landscape from day to night. And then you look in the foreground, you can see the visitors taking pictures. There's one little parent who's kind of tossing their child into the air. Like there's all these other little elements so that it creates a greater layer of kind of interest and kind of a human element for that particular shot.
So at the end, you assume the parent caught the child.
We're going to go ahead with that assumption.
Okay.
You know,
you just hope that that's...
We welcome our visitors to make up their own stories as they go through, but for me,
It's a drama. Yeah.
Sure, it's fine. So that is two incredible exhibits. And what else is going on that you would like to share with us?
Well, of course, we have Randy Johnson of the Baseball Hall of Fame. People would know storytelling with photographs, his photos from his trips to Africa. We're just about to open another exhibit, Crafting Freedom. That's going to open next 2 weekends from now, end of June. And that is stoneware pottery created by a just recently, let's say, rediscovered black potter from the, I think, 18th century. And then looking forward to fall, I'm very excited because we're going to be doing an exhibit of Frog and Toad.
Yeah.
And Arnold Lobel's daughter, Adrienne Lobel, will also be showing her work with us, so that's exciting stuff to look forward to.
And those... I think those are very popular exhibits, aren't they? I mean, I know you did Arthur a while ago,
right.
Mark Brown, and I mean, I grew up in Frog and Toad.
Yeah. And great fun to be working with Adrienne because she's giving a daughter's perspective on her father's work, and she's co-curating the exhibition. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, and as somebody in education, it's wonderful that Chris and the curatorial team has been putting together these incredible exhibits about children's book illustrators, because I think that's something that is a very valid form of art, and we're very happy to show them. And it also, ties into our, mission of educating the public and educating children. So it's going to be a great fall exhibit.
Realize that all art institutions are not created equal when it comes to how they dealt or withstood COVID and a sudden loss of audience, and I think mostly of performing arts. But how did you come out of all of that?
I think we actually did pretty well.
We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. We've been...
The checks are clearing.
People are coming in. We were able to... Luckily, our lenders were very flexible with us. Everybody understood we have to work together. We're fortunate in a way because we're already closed from January 1st to April 1st. And that was really helpful. And we also have a great in-house collection to work with. And during COVID, when we could be open, I think visitors were pleased to have a place that they could go to and feel safe. And now they're coming back. Now that we're going full tilt, they're coming back and seeing some fabulous work. So we managed the storm pretty well.
And as far as programming, we learned the value of the love-hate relationship with Zoom, and we managed to make that work. And even to this day, we're still offering Zoom programming. In fact, I'll do a plug. This summer, we are offering a special panel discussion, a symposium via Zoom that's live that relates to Escher, and it's based on STEAM. So we have experts in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics who are going to be together, some professors from SUNY Albany, one from Cornell, discussing their particular disciplines and how they're inspired by the arts and how the arts are inspired by them, and putting Escher right in the middle of it. So
So many incredible exhibits, 2 highlights, MC Escher, Infinite Variations, and Day to Night photographs by Stephen Wilkes. To find out more about the other exhibitions as well as programming, you can go to FenimoreArt.org, FenimoreArt.org. It's the Fenimore Art Museum in Cooperstown, New York. Chris Rossi is Director of Exhibitions, and Kevin Gray is Manager of Arts Education. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a beautiful season. I hope you have wonderful crowds, and thank you very much. We'll have you come back to talk Frog and Toad later on.
Yes, please. Thanks. Always a treat. Yeah.